The Quiet Recruit. Part 1. The recruitment station on Kepler 442b hummed with the usual chaos of interspecies military processing. Towering Krillian warriors flexed their chitinous armor plates while discussing battle strategies in their clicking language. Swift Zephyrian scouts darted between processing stations, their translucent wings catching the artificial light. Massive Gornak heavy infantry stomped past, each footstep making the floor vibrate. And then there was Maya Chen. She sat quietly in the corner, her small human frame almost invisible among the alien giants. At barely 5 feet tall and weighing maybe 120 pounds, she looked like she'd blow away in a strong wind. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard recruitment jumpsuit that seemed to swallow her whole. Commander Thexkar, a 7-foot-tall Krillian with scars crisscrossing his exoskeleton, reviewed the day's recruits on his datapad. His compound eyes paused at one entry that made him click his mandibles in confusion. Human female. Maya Chen, age 22. Previous military experience, none. Special skills, listed as maintenance and repair. He looked up at his aide, a nervous Zephyrian named Zix. Why is this one here? We need warriors, not technicians. Zix's wings fluttered anxiously. Sir, the human recruitment protocols require us to accept all volunteers who pass basic physical requirements. She barely made the minimums, but she made them. Thexkar finished with a grunt. Very well. Process her with the others. Maya had heard every word despite being 50 feet away. Her hearing had always been unusually sharp, a fact she kept to herself. She'd also noticed the way several alien recruits had dismissed her with barely a glance, filing her away as irrelevant. That was fine with her. She'd been underestimated her entire life. Growing up in the terraforming colonies, Maya had learned early that being small and quiet had advantages. While other kids made noise and drew attention, she observed. She watched how things worked, how they broke, and most importantly, how to fix them. Her parents had died in a reactor accident when she was 16, leaving her to fend for herself on a harsh frontier world. The Galactic Defense Force had been her ticket off that rock. Not to mention, Earth needed representatives in the galaxy's largest military organization. Humans were the newest species to join the galactic community, and they were eager to prove themselves worthy allies. The processing line moved slowly. Each recruit underwent medical scans, psychological evaluations, and preliminary skill assessments. Maya watched as the imposing aliens ahead of her demonstrated their natural advantages. The Krillians' armor could deflect small arms fire. The Zephyrians could fly and possessed reflexes that made them nearly impossible to hit. The Gornaks could lift a hover tank with their bare hands. When her turn came, the medical scanner barely registered her presence. The Vorthan technician, a tall, gray-skinned being with 4 arms, frowned at his readings. Are you sure you're not sick, human? Your biological readings are minimal. I'm fine, Maya replied quietly. The psychological evaluation was conducted by a Minthari, a species known for their telepathic abilities. The pale ethereal being placed its elongated fingers near Maya's temples and concentrated. After several minutes, it withdrew with a puzzled expression. Curious, it murmured in its musical voice. Your mind is organized, compartmentalized. Most humans' thoughts scatter like startled fish. Yours are more like a library. Maya said nothing. She'd learned long ago to keep her thoughts ordered, to file away emotions and focus on practical matters. Survival had depended on it. The skills assessment proved to be the most challenging part. While other recruits demonstrated spectacular physical abilities, Maya was asked to solve a series of technical problems. She quickly identified flaws in weapon schematics, optimized supply chain logistics, and diagnosed malfunctions in complex equipment. The testing officer, a multi-eyed Hexeran, seemed surprised by her performance. These are advanced engineering problems. How did you learn this? Trial and error, Maya answered simply. When something breaks on a frontier world, you either fix it yourself or die. By the end of processing, Maya had been assigned to the 47th Mixed Battalion, a unit known for taking on difficult assignments that required diverse skill sets. Her commanding officer would be Major Kretal, a battle-scarred Gornak who had little patience for weakness. As the new recruits were assigned to their quarters, Maya found herself sharing a space with 3 other beings. Her bunkmate was Senna, a young Zephyrian who seemed as nervous as Maya was calm. I heard Major Kretal eats recruits who can't keep up, Senna whispered. her wings trembling slightly. Metaphorically, Maya replied, unpacking her few belongings with methodical precision. How can you be so calm? Don't you know what this unit does? They call them the Suicide Squad because they get all the impossible missions. Maya paused in her unpacking. Every mission is impossible until someone does it. That night, as her bunkmates discussed their fears and boasted about their abilities, Maya lay quietly on her narrow cot and stared at the ceiling. She thought about the reactor accident that had killed her parents, how the supposedly impossible malfunction had been caused by something as simple as a loose connection that everyone had overlooked. The galaxy was vast and full of complex problems that powerful beings tried to solve with force and spectacular abilities. But Maya had learned that sometimes the smallest adjustment, the quietest observation, could change everything. Tomorrow would bring their first training exercises. The other recruits would undoubtedly try to prove themselves through displays of strength and speed. Maya had different plans. She would watch, listen, and learn. And when the time came, she would show them that being underestimated was the greatest tactical advantage of all. As sleep finally took her, Maya smiled slightly. The aliens had no idea what they were dealing with. Humans might be physically unremarkable compared to the galaxy's warrior races, but they had something else entirely. They had the ability to find solutions where others saw only problems, to adapt where others could only apply brute force. The quiet recruit was about to become something the galaxy had never seen before. The Quiet Recruit, Part 2. The training facility stretched across several square kilometers of barren landscape, designed to simulate every conceivable battlefield environment. Major Kretal stood before the assembled recruits like a mountain of muscle and scarred gray hide, his voice booming across the parade ground. Welcome to hell, maggots. I am Major Kretal, and for the next 6 months your pathetic lives belong to me. His massive fist slammed into his palm with a sound like thunder. Look around you. Half of you won't make it through basic training. Of those who do, half won't survive your first real mission. Maya stood at attention with the other recruits, but her eyes weren't on the intimidating Gornak. Instead, she studied the training equipment, noting maintenance panels, power coupling weaknesses, and tactical blind spots. While her fellow recruits focused on the Major's threats, she was already analyzing their environment. Today we begin with a simple exercise, Kretal continued, his predatory grin revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Capture the flag. 4 teams, each defending a position while attempting to capture the other's flags. Last team standing wins extra rations. Losers get to clean the latrines with their tongues. The recruits were divided into squads of 10. Maya found herself grouped with Senna the nervous Zephyrian, 2 hulking Gornaks named Thrum and Gar, 3 Krillian warriors, and 3 other beings she didn't recognize. Their team leader was a scarred Krillian veteran named Vask, who looked at Maya with obvious disgust. Great. Vask clicked in the Krillian language, not realizing Maya had spent her spare time learning it. They stick us with the useless human. Maya said nothing, but filed the comment away for future reference. Each team was assigned a fortified position on opposite corners of a square-kilometer battlefield filled with obstacles, trenches, and elevation changes. Their flag was mounted on a 30-foot pole in the center of their compound, surrounded by sensor arrays that would detect any approach. As the other teams immediately began planning frontal assaults and showing off their natural advantages, Maya quietly examined their defensive position. The compound was well designed by conventional standards, but she noticed something others had missed. The power conduits for the sensor array ran through an access tunnel that was too small for most aliens, but perfectly sized for a human. Vask, she said quietly, I have a suggestion. The Krillian leader didn't even look at her. You stay here and try not to get in the way, human. We'll handle the fighting. Maya watched as her team charged off toward the nearest enemy position, following exactly the kind of direct assault strategy that every other team would expect. They engaged in a spectacular battle with Team 2, trading energy weapon fire and displaying impressive combat techniques. It was exactly what the instructors wanted to see. It was also exactly the wrong approach. While the 3 teams battled each other in conventional warfare, Maya made her move. She had studied the facility schematics during their orientation briefing, memorizing every tunnel, conduit, and maintenance shaft. What looked like solid walls to the alien recruits were actually access routes to someone small enough to use them. She slipped into the maintenance tunnel she'd spotted earlier, crawling through spaces barely wider than her shoulders. The network of service passages connected all 4 team positions, designed for automated maintenance drones. Maya's small size and quiet movement made her virtually undetectable. The first flag she captured belonged to Team 3, whose members were engaged in a fierce firefight with Team 4. She emerged from a ventilation grate directly beneath their flagpole, disabled the sensor array from inside their own defensive system, and was gone before anyone noticed the flag was missing. Team 2's flag was slightly more challenging. Their position was being overrun by her own teammates, but the chaos provided perfect cover. While weapons fire lit up the battlefield above, Maya accessed their position through the storm drainage system, emerging in their command bunker when it was temporarily abandoned. The third flag required more creativity. Team 4 had kept half their force in reserve, making a stealth approach more difficult. But Maya had noticed that their defensive sensors were calibrated for standard alien body signatures. A human's smaller heat signature and lower mass could potentially slip through their detection grid. She was right. Moving slowly and staying low, she ghosted through their perimeter defenses and claimed their flag while their guards were focused on the spectacular battle raging in the distance. When the exercise ended, the instructors found all 3 enemy flags neatly stacked in Maya's team's base, while she sat quietly cleaning her equipment as if nothing had happened. Major Kretal stared at the flags in confusion. "Vask, how did your team capture all 3 flags while still engaging Team 2 in direct combat?" Vask looked equally bewildered. "Sir, we fought bravely and used superior tactics." "Really?" The Major's voice carried a dangerous edge. "Because our surveillance drones show your entire team except 1 member engaged in a completely standard frontal assault." "Care to explain that?" All eyes turned to Maya, who continued methodically cleaning her gear. "The objective was to capture the flags, sir, not to engage in combat. You took all 3 flags yourself?" "Yes, sir." The training ground fell silent. Even the instructors looked stunned. A single recruit, the smallest and seemingly weakest member of her team, had accomplished in 30 minutes what should have taken hours of coordinated team effort. "Show me," Kretal demanded. Maya led the group to each position, demonstrating the routes she'd used and the weaknesses she'd exploited. Her explanations were quiet and methodical, pointing out design flaws that had been invisible to everyone else. "The sensor arrays are designed to detect standard alien physiologies," she explained. "Human signatures are different enough to create gaps in coverage. The maintenance tunnels aren't secured because no one expected them to be used tactically, and the defensive positions are optimized against direct assault, not infiltration." Captain Yexhai, a Menthari instructor, studied Maya with renewed interest. "This level of tactical analysis suggests significant military training. Your file indicates no previous experience. Growing up on a frontier world teaches you to find solutions others miss," Maya replied simply. "When a reactor malfunction threatens the entire colony, you learn to think creatively under pressure." That evening, word of the exercise spread throughout the training facility. The tiny human who had single-handedly defeated 3 teams became the subject of intense speculation. Some dismissed it as luck. Others began to wonder what else humans might be capable of. Maya remained in her bunk, quietly studying technical manuals while her teammates celebrated their unexpected victory. Senna fluttered over, her nervousness replaced by curiosity. "How did you know about those tunnels? How did you avoid the sensors?" Maya looked up from her reading. "I paid attention during the briefing. Everyone else was focused on the weapons and armor demonstrations. I was looking at the infrastructure. But the way you moved, the timing, it was like you could see the entire battlefield at once." Maya considered this. When you're small and quiet, you learn to observe everything. Most people only see what's directly in front of them. I see the systems underneath. As the lights dimmed for sleep cycle, Maya reflected on the day's events. The exercise had been a minor victory, but it had also revealed something important. The galaxy's military forces were built around the strengths of powerful, physically impressive species. Their tactics, their equipment, their entire approach to warfare assumed certain capabilities and limitations. Humans didn't fit those assumptions. And that, Maya realized, might be their greatest weapon of all. The Quiet Recruit. Part 3. 3 months into training, Maya had become something of an enigma among the recruits. She consistently scored at the bottom of physical fitness tests, couldn't match the strength or speed of her alien companions, and barely qualified on standard marksmanship ranges. Yet somehow she never lost a tactical exercise. Major Kretal found himself in the unusual position of having a recruit who defied every metric he understood. Traditional military doctrine suggested Maya should have washed out weeks ago. Instead, she had become the most effective problem solver in the entire training battalion. The turning point came during the impossible scenario exercise, a simulation designed to have no winning solution. It was meant to teach recruits how to face inevitable defeat with courage and maintain unit cohesion under hopeless circumstances. The scenario placed a squad of 10 recruits in a damaged starship, systems failing, enemy forces closing in, with no hope of escape or rescue. Previous classes had demonstrated heroic last stands, touching sacrifice and inspiring leadership in the face of certain doom. That was the point. Maya's squad found themselves in the simulator's replica of a crippled cruiser. Lights flickered, artificial gravity fluctuated, and warning klaxons blared constantly. Their briefing was simple: hold position for as long as possible against overwhelming enemy forces. Squad leader Vask immediately began organizing defensive positions.
Thrumgar, take the main corridor.
Senna, you're our mobile scout, Maya. He paused, still uncomfortable with giving the human meaningful assignments. You monitor communications. Maya nodded and moved to the communication station, but her real attention was on the ship's diagnostic displays that everyone else had ignored. While her squad mates prepared for a glorious last stand, she quietly accessed the damage reports and system schematics. The enemy forces began their assault 20 minutes into the exercise. Simulated plasma bolts filled the corridors as alien Marines advanced on their position. Vask's defensive strategy was textbook perfect, utilizing each squad member's natural advantages to maximum effect. But Maya wasn't fighting. She was deep in the ship's computer systems, tracing power conduits and analyzing damage reports. What she found there changed everything. Vask, she called out during a brief lull in the fighting. I need 5 minutes and someone to cover me. We're in the middle of a battle, human. There's no time for whatever technical nonsense you're planning. The ship isn't as damaged as the initial reports indicated, Maya continued calmly, even as enemy fire resumed around them. Someone sabotaged the diagnostics to make us think the situation was hopeless. This got Vask's attention. What are you talking about? Maya's fingers flew across the control interfaces, bringing up displays that showed her analysis. Look at these power distribution patterns. The main engines aren't destroyed, they're just offline. The navigation system is functional but locked out. Even life support is actually stable, despite what the warning messages say. That's impossible, Vask clicked. The instructors wouldn't lie about the scenario parameters. They wouldn't lie, Maya agreed. But they might simulate realistic sabotage. What if this isn't a test of how we handle defeat? What if it's a test of whether we can recognize when defeat is artificially manufactured? The fighting intensified around them, but Maya continued her work. She traced every system failure, every diagnostic error, every supposedly irreparable malfunction, and one by one she found the digital fingerprints of sabotage. Senna, she called to the Zephyrian, I need you to reach the engine control room. There's a manual override that can restart the main drive. But the corridor leading there is completely overrun with enemy forces. No, it's not. Look at this tactical display. The enemy forces are concentrated exactly where our defensive doctrine says they should be, but there's a maintenance route that bypasses them completely. While her squad continued their defensive battle, Maya guided Senna through the ship's hidden pathways. The young Zephyrian's natural agility made her perfect for navigating the narrow service corridors Maya had identified. 20 minutes later, the ship's main engines rumbled back to life. Impossible, Vask shouted over the sound of restored power systems. The engines were destroyed! No, Maya replied, now working on the navigation systems. They were disabled by someone who wanted us to believe they were destroyed. Thrum, I need you to manually cycle the navigation computer. There's a physical reset switch behind that panel. The massive Gornak looked confused but followed her instructions. Moments later, navigation displays flickered back to life, showing clear routes away from the enemy fleet. Gar, can you handle the helm? I've plotted a course that uses the asteroid field to mask our escape. As the ship began to move, their simulated enemies found themselves chasing a vessel they had expected to be helpless. Maya's tactical analysis had identified weaknesses in the enemy formation that allowed them to slip through what should have been an impenetrable blockade. The simulation ended with their successful escape, something that had never happened in the history of the exercise. The debriefing room was silent as instructors reviewed the simulation data. Captain HFY, the Minthari evaluation officer, finally spoke. In 200 years of military service, I have never seen a recruit identify and counteract scenario manipulation of this sophistication. The sabotage elements were hidden behind 7 layers of system encryption. Major Kretal looked genuinely shaken. Chen, how did you know the scenario was manipulated? Maya considered her answer carefully. The damage patterns didn't make sense, sir. If the ship had really taken that kind of punishment, we should have been dead before the exercise started. The fact that we were alive meant the critical systems were still functional, just hidden. But how did you know where to look? What to fix? I grew up maintaining life support systems that failed regularly. When something stops working, you trace the connections until you find where the break really is. Most of the time, it's not where you first think it is. Instructor Zakthai, a senior Hexaran tactician, leaned forward. You're suggesting that our conventional approach to this scenario was fundamentally flawed? Yes, sir. Everyone assumes that when faced with overwhelming force, the only options are fight or die. But what if the overwhelming force is an illusion? What if the real battle is against the assumptions that trap you in the first place? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Maya had not only solved an impossible scenario, she had demonstrated that the scenario itself was based on flawed premises. That night, encrypted communications flashed between training facility commanders and Galactic Defense Force headquarters. A new kind of tactical thinking was emerging from the most unlikely source imaginable. Maya, unaware of the strategic discussions her performance had triggered, continued her quiet study routine. But she noticed that other recruits had begun watching her more carefully, asking questions about her approach to problems they had never considered solvable. The quiet recruit was developing a reputation. More importantly, she was proving that human thinking operated on principles that the galaxy's military establishment had never encountered. And in the command centers of a dozen worlds, strategic planners were beginning to wonder what other assumptions they might be wrong about. The quiet recruit. Part 4 graduation from basic training came with an unexpected assignment. While most of Maya's fellow recruits were posted to standard garrison duties or patrol fleets, she found herself transferred to the 3rd Special Operations Division under Commander Felnara, a legendary Krillian warrior known for taking on missions other units couldn't handle. The 3rd SOD operated from a mobile command ship, the Stalwart, that moved throughout contested space zones. Maya's first glimpse of her new home was a massive vessel bristling with weapons and packed with the most elite soldiers from dozens of species. Commander Felnara was a scarred veteran whose exoskeleton bore the marks of countless battles. When she met Maya in the briefing room, her compound eyes studied the small human with undisguised skepticism. So you're the recruit who's been causing such a stir in training? Felnara clicked, her mandibles clicking rhythmically. Your instructors seem to think you have unique capabilities. I solve problems, sir, Maya replied simply. We'll see. Your first assignment is with Beta Squad. They're investigating unusual activity in the Xerian system. Pirates have been hitting convoy routes with impossible precision, striking exactly when and where defenses are weakest. Maya was introduced to Beta Squad in the ship's tactical center. The team consisted of 5 elite operatives. Corvin, a massive Gornak heavy weapons specialist. Dr. Seelith, a brilliant Menthari intelligence analyst. Zix, a Zephyrian pilot with reflexes that bordered on supernatural. Arak, a Hexaran tech specialist, and their leader, Lieutenant Commander Rixtal, a Krillian who had served with distinction in 3 major conflicts. Rixtal looked at Maya's personnel file with obvious doubt. No offense, Chen, but this squad handles the most dangerous operations in GDF. We can't afford to babysit a rookie. I don't need babysitting, Maya said quietly. What I need is access to the convoy attack data. Dr. Seelith, the Menthari analyst, gestured to a holographic display showing attack patterns across the Xerion system. We've analyzed every engagement. The pirates somehow know exactly when convoys will be most vulnerable. They strike during shift changes, equipment maintenance windows, and communication blackouts with surgical precision. Maya studied the display for several minutes, her eyes tracking the attack patterns. While the others discussed conventional intelligence gathering and military responses, she focused on something different. Dr. Sileth, can you overlay this data with shipping company maintenance schedules? Maintenance schedules? Why would that be relevant? Because these aren't random attacks. Look at the timing. Every strike happens when the convoy's most experienced crew members are off duty, and their backup systems are cycling through diagnostic routines. Hrock, the Hexerin tech specialist, manipulated the display to show the requested information. The correlation was immediately obvious. Every pirate attack coincided perfectly with routine maintenance procedures that left convoys temporarily vulnerable. Impossible, Rixtal clicked. Those maintenance schedules are classified. Pirates couldn't access that information. They wouldn't need to, Maya replied. What if someone is feeding them the schedules? Someone with legitimate access who knows exactly when convoys will be weakest? The squad exchanged glances. Dr. Sileth leaned forward, her ethereal features tense with concentration. You're suggesting an inside source. But these attacks span multiple shipping companies, different security contractors, various supply routes, which means the source has access to information that crosses all those boundaries, Maya concluded. Someone in the Central Traffic Coordination Office or maybe the Regional Security Oversight Bureau. Within hours, Beta Squad was deployed to investigate Maya's theory. Traditional approach would have been to infiltrate pirate bases and gather intelligence through force. Instead, Maya had identified a completely different attack vector that required investigating the bureaucracy behind galactic shipping. Their investigation led them to the Regional Traffic Coordination Center on Kepler Station, a massive installation that managed shipping routes for 3-star systems. Maya's analysis had identified 17 officials with access to the scheduling information that matched the pirate attack patterns. While her teammates prepared for conventional surveillance and infiltration, Maya took a different approach. She requested assignment to the station's maintenance department, explaining that she needed to understand the facility's information systems from the inside. Chen, we're special operations. Not janitors, Rixtal protested. Information flows through infrastructure, Maya replied. If someone is stealing shipping schedules, they're doing it through the station's computer networks. I need to trace those networks. Working as a maintenance technician gave Maya access to every part of the station. While her squad mates conducted surveillance on suspected officials, she mapped the facility's data systems with methodical precision. Her small size and quiet demeanor made her practically invisible to the station personnel. What she discovered was far more sophisticated than simple data theft. Someone had installed microscopic network taps throughout the facility's computer systems. Devices so small and well hidden that conventional security sweeps had missed them completely. The taps were transmitting selected information to a relay satellite that retransmitted it to unknown receivers. But Maya found something else. The network taps weren't randomly placed. They were positioned to capture specific types of data, suggesting whoever installed them had intimate knowledge of the station's information architecture. The inside source isn't stealing the information, she reported to her squad. They're the one who installed the surveillance network. This isn't opportunistic piracy, it's a systematic intelligence operation. Dr. Sileth's mental analysis of the data was swift and precise. If you're correct, we're dealing with someone who has been planning this for months, possibly years. The level of technical sophistication suggests military training. Maya's investigation had identified not just a security breach, but an entire espionage network. The pirates were being fed information by someone who had systematically compromised the galaxy's shipping infrastructure. The trap they set was elegant in its simplicity. Maya worked with Hrock to feed false schedule information through the compromised network, creating an apparent vulnerability in a high-value convoy that was actually a heavily armed GDF strike force. When the pirates arrived expecting easy prey, they found themselves facing Beta Squad and a full military response. But more importantly, Maya had traced the information flow back to its source. The spy turned out to be Chief Information Officer Velnax, a Krillian administrator who had been selling shipping schedules to finance a gambling addiction. But his capture revealed something even more disturbing. The pirates he was working with weren't random criminals. They were part of a larger organization with sophisticated intelligence capabilities and advanced technology. "This is just the beginning," Commander Felnara observed when Beta Squad reported their findings. "Someone with significant resources is systematically mapping our shipping infrastructure. The question is why?" Maya, studying the data they had gathered, had her own suspicions. The intelligence operation was too sophisticated for simple piracy, too systematic for random crime. Someone was preparing for something much larger. The quiet recruit had uncovered not just a criminal conspiracy, but the early stages of what appeared to be a strategic intelligence operation, targeting the galaxy's economic infrastructure, and she was beginning to understand that her unique approach to problem-solving might be exactly what the galaxy needed to face whatever was coming next. The Quiet Recruit. Part 5, the emergency briefing aboard the Stalwart, carried an urgency Maya had never felt before. Commander Felnara's usually composed demeanor showed cracks of genuine concern as she addressed the assembled special operations teams. 18 hours ago, the hegemony launched a coordinated assault on 7 major systems simultaneously, she announced. "The attacks demonstrate impossible intelligence capabilities. They knew exactly where our fleets were positioned, when our defenses would be weakest, and how to disable our communication networks." Maya felt a chill of recognition. The patterns Felnara described matched exactly what she had uncovered in the Xerion shipping network, but scaled up to an unimaginable degree. "The hegemony has been planning this for years," Dr. Silith added, her usually calm Menthari features tight with stress. "Every shipping schedule Maya traced, every compromised network we discovered, was part of a massive intelligence gathering operation. They haven't just been stealing information about convoys, they've been mapping our entire military infrastructure." The holographic display showed the scope of the crisis. 7 systems under attack, with combined populations exceeding 40 billion beings. GDF forces were responding, but they were fighting enemies who seemed to know their every move before they made it. "Beta Squad has new orders," Felnara continued. "Intelligence suggests the hegemony's coordination center is located in the Void Drift, a region of space that should be impossible to navigate. Your mission is to locate and neutralize their command structure." Rixtal studied the tactical display with obvious concern. "Commander, the Void Drift is a gravitational anomaly field. Ship navigation is impossible. Even if we could find their base, we couldn't reach it." "Which is exactly why they chose that location," Maya said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "They're not using conventional navigation. If they have a base in the Void Drift, they must have found a way to move through gravitational chaos that our standard systems can't handle." Commander Felnara's compound eyes focused on Maya with sudden intensity. "Explain." Maya moved to the tactical display, her fingers dancing across the controls to overlay new data patterns. "Look at the timing of their attacks. They're not just coordinated, they're synchronized to compensate for gravitational time dilation effects. That means they're operating from multiple positions within the drift, using the gravitational fields themselves as a communications network." "That's theoretically impossible," Harak protested. "Gravitational fields don't carry information." "They do if you know how to modulate them," Maya replied. "The same way stellar radiation can be modulated to carry data across interstellar distances. But it would require understanding gravitational mechanics at a level that exceeds current galactic science." Dr. Silith leaned forward, her telepathic abilities focused intently on Maya's thoughts. "You're suggesting they've developed technology that allows them to use space-time itself as a communication medium?" "And navigation system," Maya confirmed. "If they can read gravitational variations precisely enough, they could navigate through the Void Drift using the anomalies as landmarks rather than obstacles." The implications hit the room like a shockwave. An enemy with that level of technological advancement wouldn't just threaten the current conflict, they would render existing galactic civilization obsolete. "Even if you're right," Rixtal clicked, "we still can't reach them. We don't have that technology." Maya was quiet for a long moment, studying the gravitational maps of the Void Drift. Her mind worked through the problem with the same methodical approach she applied to every technical challenge. "We don't need their technology," she finally said. "We just need to understand what they're doing differently." Over the next 6 hours, Maya worked with the ship's science team to analyze every scrap of data about the hegemony's movements. She traced communication delays, studied attack timing, and mapped gravitational variations throughout the void drift region. What she found was both brilliant and vulnerable. They're not just using gravitational fields for navigation and communication, she explained to the assembled squad. They're using them for power generation. Their entire operation is built around harvesting energy from the gravitational anomalies. Corvin, the massive Gornak, looked confused. How does that help us reach them? Because power generation creates signatures, Maya replied. Thermal emissions, electromagnetic byproducts, gravitational disturbances. They're so focused on hiding from conventional sensors that they've created new types of detectable signatures. Working with Zix, the Zephyrian pilot Maya developed a navigation approach that no one had ever attempted. Instead of fighting the gravitational anomalies, they would use them. By reading the power signatures Maya had identified, they could trace the energy flows back to their source. It's not navigation in any conventional sense, Zix admitted, his translucent wings fluttering with nervous energy. We'd be flying blind, following energy patterns through a region where a single miscalculation means death. Then we won't miscalculate, Maya said simply. The approach to the void drift required modifications to their ship's sensors that Maya designed, based on her analysis of the hegemony's energy signatures. Beta Squad's stealth corvette, Shadowlance, was retrofitted with experimental detection equipment that could track the subtle power flows Maya had identified. As they entered the outer edge of the anomaly field, conventional navigation failed exactly as expected. Stars disappeared behind gravitational lenses, space-time warped around them, and their instruments registered readings that defied standard physics. But Maya's power flow navigation worked. Following the energy signatures she had mapped, they threaded through gravitational mazes that should have torn their ship apart. Each course correction was based on detecting artificial energy patterns hidden within natural chaos. There, Maya said quietly, pointing to a sensor reading that looked like random noise to everyone else. That's not a natural gravitational variance. Something artificial is generating power in that region. What they found defied every assumption about space-based installations. The hegemony's command center wasn't built despite the gravitational anomalies. It was built from them. They had somehow constructed a base that existed partially outside normal spacetime, using the drift's chaotic gravitational fields as both camouflage and power source. How do we attack something that barely exists in normal space? Rixtal wondered. Maya studied the impossible structure through their sensors, her mind already working on the problem. We don't attack the base, she said. We attack the gravitational field that supports it. Her plan was typically unconventional. Instead of direct assault, she proposed using the hegemony's own technology against them. By overloading their power generation systems, they could destabilize the gravitational field that kept the base in its pocket dimension. If we can cause a cascade failure in their energy harvesting network, Maya explained, the entire installation will be pulled back into normal spacetime. Then we can deal with it using conventional weapons. It was a plan that could only have come from someone who saw connections others missed, who understood that sometimes the most sophisticated defenses could be defeated by attacking their fundamental assumptions. As Shadowlance maneuvered into position for Maya's assault on physics itself, the quiet recruit prepared to demonstrate that human thinking could find solutions to problems the galaxy didn't even know existed. The Quiet Recruit, Part 6. The attack on the hegemony's impossible base required precision that pushed both technology and tactics beyond known limits. Maya's plan involved targeting specific points in their gravitational power network, creating a cascade failure that would collapse their pocket dimension and force them back into normal space where conventional weapons could reach them. Initiating Phase 1, Zix reported, his hands steady on controls that responded to gravitational fields rather than conventional thrust. The Shadowlance maneuvered through twisted spacetime, following Maya's calculated approach vectors that threaded between gravitational anomalies. Maya worked at her sensor station, tracking energy flows that registered as barely detectable variations in local spacetime. Her analysis had identified 12 critical nodes in the hegemony's power network. Overloading them in the correct sequence would create a resonance cascade that their own technology couldn't compensate for. First target locked, she announced quietly. Corvin, I need a precision strike on coordinates I'm transmitting. The timing window is 3 seconds. The massive Gornak's heavy weapons found their mark with surprising delicacy. The targeted node erupted in gravitational distortions that rippled through the anomaly field. Deep within their pocket dimension, the hegemony base shuddered as power systems fluctuated. "They're responding," Dr. Silith reported, her telepathic senses detecting confusion and alarm from the enemy installation. "They know they're under attack, but they can't locate us through the gravitational interference." Maya's second target required the Shadowlance to pass through a region where space itself folded back on itself. Zix's flying skills, enhanced by Maya's understanding of the power flows, guided them through impossible geometry. "Target 2, Maya called out. Another precision strike, another node overloaded. The cascade was beginning. By the fifth target, the hegemony had realized what was happening. Their defensive systems, designed to repel attacks in normal space, proved useless against Maya's approach. They couldn't defend against attacks they couldn't detect, launched from positions that shouldn't exist. "Their power grid is destabilizing," Rock reported from his technical station. "Whatever you did, Chen, it's working. Their gravitational field generators are going into emergency shutdown." The 6th through 11th targets fell in rapid succession. Maya's understanding of their power network allowed Beta Squad to strike with surgical precision, hitting exactly the points needed to create maximum disruption with minimum exposure to enemy fire. "Final target," Maya announced as they approached the 12th node. "This one will trigger the complete cascade. Once we hit it, they'll have approximately 90 seconds before their pocket dimension collapses." Corvin's shot was perfect. The last node erupted in a chain reaction that rippled through the entire gravitational field. Space-time itself seemed to convulse as artificial gravity fields collapsed in sequence. "It's working," Zix shouted as impossible geometry began to resolve into normal three-dimensional space. "The base is being pulled back into our reality." What emerged from the collapsing pocket dimension was a technological marvel that dwarfed anything in the GDF arsenal. The Hegemony Command Center was a massive installation that incorporated gravitational manipulation technology beyond current galactic understanding, but now it existed in normal space-time, vulnerable to conventional attack. "All GDF vessels, this is Beta Squad," Rixtal transmitted on emergency frequencies. "Target coordinates transmitted. Enemy command structure is exposed and defenseless. The response was immediate. 3 GDF fleets that had been waiting at the edge of the void drift moved in for the attack. The hegemony's technological superiority meant nothing when their primary defensive advantage had been removed. But Maya was already analyzing new data streams from the exposed base. "Wait," she called out urgently. "Before the final assault, we need to capture their technical databases. This technology, it's not just advanced. It's based on principles that could revolutionize everything." Dr. Silith's telepathic probe of the base revealed panicked evacuation procedures and desperate attempts to destroy sensitive information. "They're trying to wipe their computer systems. If we want that data, we need to move now." The decision fell to Commander Felnara, monitoring the battle from the stalwart. "Beta Squad, you have authorization for data recovery. But make it fast. We can't hold off the final assault indefinitely." Maya's infiltration of the hegemony base was unlike anything in GDF tactical doctrine. While her squad mates secured the perimeter, she penetrated the installation's computer networks using techniques she had developed during months of tracing information, flows, and analyzing alien technology. What she found in their databases was staggering. The hegemony hadn't just developed advanced gravitational technology. They had been systematically studying and cataloging the military capabilities of every species in the galaxy, looking for weaknesses and developing specific countermeasures. But more disturbing was what she found about humanity. The hegemony had been watching human development with particular interest, not because humans were strong, but because human thinking patterns were unpredictable by their analytical models. "They're afraid of us," Maya realized as she downloaded terabytes of strategic data. "Not because of our physical capabilities, but because we solve problems in ways their predictive algorithms can't anticipate." The final assault on the hegemony base was swift and decisive. Deprived of their gravitational field advantages, they were no match for conventional GDF firepower. But the real victory was the intelligence Maya had captured. Her data revealed the full scope of the hegemony's strategic planning. They had been preparing for galactic conquest for decades, developing specific tactics to counter every known species' natural advantages. Every species except humans. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Silith announced during the post-mission briefing. Their tactical databases contained detailed countermeasures for Krillian armor, Zephyrian speed, Gornak strength, Minthari telepathy, and dozens of other species abilities. But their human analysis files are marked inconclusive and unpredictable. Commander Felnara studied the captured data with growing amazement. Chen, your approach to this entire mission, finding patterns in gravitational fields, using power signatures for navigation, attacking their fundamental infrastructure rather than their defenses, none of this appears in their tactical predictions. Maya considered this quietly. They've been planning to fight the galaxy as it is, but they didn't account for the galaxy changing. The implications rippled through GDF command structure over the following weeks. Maya's unconventional thinking had not only solved an impossible tactical situation, but revealed a fundamental weakness in enemy strategic planning. The hegemony's greatest strength, their ability to predict and counter. Conventional tactics became their greatest vulnerability when faced with genuinely innovative approaches. The recorded footage of Maya's mission required viewing at military academies throughout the galaxy. Her quiet analysis, methodical problem-solving, and refusal to accept conventional limitations represented a new kind of tactical thinking that could reshape military doctrine. But Maya herself remained unchanged. When offered promotions and commendations, she politely declined. When asked about her plans, she simply said she wanted to keep solving problems that others couldn't see. The quiet recruit had become something the galaxy had never seen before, a human who thought like a human, in a universe that had forgotten there were other ways to think. And as word of her capabilities spread through both military and civilian channels, a new understanding began to emerge. Humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization might not be their adaptability, or their courage, or their determination. It might be their ability to find solutions where others saw only impossible problems, to see connections that escaped even the most sophisticated analytical minds. Maya Chen had started as the smallest, quietest recruit in her training class. She had become proof that sometimes the most powerful weapon in the galaxy was simply thinking differently. The recordings of her mission were broadcast across the galactic network, not as propaganda but as education. Every species in the galaxy watched the small human who had defeated an enemy that conventional thinking couldn't touch. And in academies, research facilities, and command centers throughout known space, the question was no longer what humans could do, but what impossible things they might accomplish when they stopped trying to think like everyone else.